You can find the Torah reading this morning on page 99. It's a Torah reading with which you may all be familiar because it is the reading that we do on the high holidays. It's the story of the binding of Isaac, which finds its central location here in this morning's Parsha. The story of the binding of Isaac is a simple story to understand, but incredibly complex to unpack. What I mean by that is something very simple, and that is that the story of the binding of Isaac is supposed to be a story about complete and absolute faith in the Almighty's directive. That when God speaks to you, you have no choice but to respond in the affirmative. That when God asks you to do something, you have to say yes. And that's the point of the story. The problem is with the request, and that is what God asks of us. Sometimes it's possible that we think to ourselves that God's request of us, God's demands, God's directives are far greater than we can possibly execute. But in this morning's Parsha, we see a moment in which Abraham simply says, yes, I'm here, I'll do your will. It leaves us, the modern reader, with challenges, because those challenges are sometimes seemingly immoral. And that is, to ask a person to sacrifice their child is incredibly difficult. I would say this by way of modern commentary. We are sacrificing our children all the time. When guns are so available that someone can walk into a high school and shoot his classmates, there's something terribly wrong in our society. You've heard me say this before. I'll probably say it till my last breath. But laws and politics isn't going to change what's wrong in our society. We can have all the rules we want. We can create all the legislation possible. But until we address the fundamental flaw in our society, and that is that people have a lack of self-worth, so much so that they want to do violence to others and then ultimately to themselves, we haven't addressed a core issue in our society, and that is, how do we value human life, both our own and others? And that may very well be at the core of this morning's Torah reading. How do we value life? The reading we begin with this morning is of a moment when God wants to sacrifice the people of Sodom and Gomorrah, and Abraham pleads with God, don't do it. There are probably very good people who will die amongst those who sin. And because of that, Abraham pleads with God not to destroy human life. It would be sermon enough today to say that let's make sure that Santa Clarita, California, is the last time this occurs in our society. Let's make sure that we embrace those who are in so much pain that they want to do violence, both to those around them and to themselves, that we're able to change the world. There was once a sign that I read that I think speaks most powerfully to this moment, and that is, let me hug you until all your pieces come back together. Suggestive of the fact that we are living in a broken world, and that we must, in some way, as a faith-based community, find a way to change the tenor of our world and to heal the suffering. This morning's Torah reading begins on page 99 in the large red Chumashim, page 99.